Buenos días familia. My full name is Carlos Alberto Rodríguez Ortiz Rivera Pagán Burgo Pardo García Caquías Nazario. Carlos Alberto, my first name, Rodríguez. Baby being dedicated is Rodríguez, right? Prima, cousin. Sostre, Ortiz Rivera Pagán Burgo Pardo García Caquías Nazario. If you heard one of your last names in there, we family. So come see me at the end. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, and I am, it's island time, right? So we're used to going with the flow. We have an appreciation for the moment as opposed to the plan. But I've overdone it because I'm here 6 years too late. I was literally pastoring a church in Raleigh, North Carolina when Hurricane Harvey hit Houston. This was 6 years ago, no? Almost 6 years ago. And when Hurricane Harvey hit Houston, because I come from the Caribbean and we've experienced massive loss because of hurricanes, my heart was moved. I was in a time of transition as a pastor. I had already started our nonprofit called the Happy Givers. We had already started the nonprofit. We were still trying to figure out what are we going to do, how are we going to do it. We're basically trying to make money to fund children's homes all over the world, in Peru, Ethiopia, and Tijuana. But when Hurricane Harvey hit, in less than 48 hours, I had a connection, Jonathan Martin, who has been here before. He told me about this wonderful church in Houston, and you got to talk to the pastor, and whatever you're doing as an organization, go and see them. And I was like, amazing. Had a phone call with Chris for 10 minutes. This is what we need. This is what's happening. I gathered as much as we could. There were trucks that were loaded up with the things that you as a church sent us a list of the things that was needed at the moment. We didn't want to assume, what do you need? We wanted to learn, what do you need? And so, long story short, we start driving from Raleigh, North Carolina, through the south to get to Houston. And of course, like 2 hours before getting to Houston, we were told there's no way to go in because the waters had gone down by that point enough that it looked safe, but not enough for actually to look safe. So in the highways, you would see the cars that were kind of trying to get in and out. You remember that on the news, and people were bringing their boats and everything? So we were trying to be part of that. And we were stuck in Beaumont, Texas. And I kept saying Beaumont because, it's my second language. We're in Beaumont, Texas. I'm making all these videos back when Facebook Live was a thing. Beaumont, Texas, and we're stuck here, and we need to get to Ecclesia. And I'm trying to update all our donors, everybody that supported us. This belongs to Ecclesia Church. We need to take it there. We need to deliver it. And we couldn't. We couldn't drive. We couldn't get in. We're talking on the phone. We're talking to the police. We're emergency management systems. We're a small nonprofit, so, nobody's like making a way for us. I'm like, can we get a helicopter and we can land? It'd be so dramatic. It'll look good on Facebook. None of that was working. None of that was working. And we kept driving around Beaumont. And there was this mosque, a big mosque in Beaumont, Texas. Beautiful building. And I kept driving around it. And you know those moments, right? Those few seconds where the heart is like, there. You know those moments? It's like the wind. And you have this feeling like the right thing to do is to do this. And you're trying to ignore it. You have this plan. You have this commitment. You have this thing that you were going to do, or you said that you were going to do, or you set out to do. But that's not the thing you're meant to be doing. And we keep driving around. I keep looking at this beautiful building. And all of a sudden, one of the guys who was with me, Elijah, he's like, why don't we just leave it at the mosque? That was confirmation. It's good to listen. It's good to pay attention. It's okay to change your plans. I came all the way to Puerto Rico to let you know it's okay to change. It's okay to adjust. It's okay to be flexible. It's okay to listen to the wind and go with it. The worst thing that could happen is that you get it completely wrong. And then you learn a million lessons about when to listen. That's the worst thing that could happen. Anyways, there's a phone number. You want to learn about Islam, call this number. That was at the mosque. And this big, we call the number. Brother Mustafa picked up the phone. Brother, my name is Carlos Rodriguez. I lead an organization. We have the You Must Come. The Quran commands me to give you hospitality. Come now. was like, well, I guess we're following the Quran now. So we took around, drove the bus around, got to the mosque. The imam welcomed us. And it was a life-changing moment as a Christian organization with this beautiful Muslim community were unloading the truck in this area in the mosque. And the people from the community started coming. We must have heard it 10 times. Nobody else has come here. Nobody else has shown up. Nobody else has called us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so we spent 3 days. We stayed in the mosque. We met the community. We heard the incredible stories of loss and heartbreak and businesses destroyed and homes that were swept away. I mean, the destruction was intense. And then there was this big event that they had. It's basically the day they celebrate when God stopped Abraham from sacrificing his son. And it's a big festivity, right? And so they're bringing lamb. And these meals are so delicious. But they welcome us into the meeting. We're sitting at the back. And I'm Mustafa, you need to help me, right? What do I do? Where do I sit? How do I wash? And so they're being so gracious to us, welcoming us. We're sitting at the back. And the imam's speaking. And at a certain moment, he says, that guy at the back, he looks like one of us. Which I do. Which is true, which I love. And I'm sitting at the back. You know the prophet Isa. You know the prophet Jesus. Today, these brothers are Jesus to us. And whatever you have in your pockets, pull it out of your pockets and just give the prophet Jesus a gift. We're standing in the back. About 300 men stand up, turn around, look at us, and they start pulling out cash, coins, and I kid you not, they're just throwing money at us from all over the box. I'm just standing there without shoes on, confused about what's happening. At that moment, I knew, once again, that the table is open for all. The temptation as a pastor, and this happens to everybody who's in any kind of spiritual leadership, is if God did it this way with me, then this becomes the 7 points of everybody else needs to do it this way so that God does it for them. But according to Jesus in John 3:8, the wind blows where it wishes, and you hear its sound, but you do not know where it comes or where it goes. And so it is with everybody born of the Spirit. The verse before that, John 3:7, one of the most famous verses, because it's the invitation from Jesus to Nicodemus, you must be born again. And unfortunately, we have turned that invitation into almost a category. I'm a born-again Christian. And as a born-again Christian, this is how I talk, this is how I vote, this is how I behave, this is what I do on Sundays. I'm a born-again Christian. But the invitation on the verse right after, as a person who is of a new life, of a new culture, of a new kingdom, of a new existence, is to be like the wind and follow the Spirit to places that would be uncomfortable and different to what you're used to, which is what happened in Beaumont, Texas. We followed the wind, and it took us to places that open our hearts more. You see, even the Bible, if you see it as a story that's united and completed, even Scripture is the story of more inclusion, of more welcoming, of more people, of movement forward. It starts with the one couple, and then it goes to the one family in this big boat, and then it goes to this foreigner called Abraham starting a people, and then it goes to these 12 tribes, and then it goes to a kingdom, and then it goes to Jesus, the Samaritan, welcoming everybody. And then it goes to Peter in the house of Cornelius, even more people. The story of Scripture is constantly saying, who else can we welcome to the table? Who else can we include in this experience of being born again, of following the Spirit where it leads you? The temptation is always to draw the line. Yeah, I'm cool, I'm welcoming, I'm nice, but till here, over here. And whenever we draw lines to separate us from each other, Jesus goes to the other side of the line and says, I'm here now. Come and join me. That was basically the 3 years of ministry of Jesus in the Gospels. He said, you guys don't like Nazareth? Yeah, that's where I'm going to be. That's where I'm going to be raised, in Nazareth. Oh, you guys don't like the people from Galilee? Yeah, my disciples are from over there. Oh, you guys have an issue with the Samaritans? The Samaritan is the hero of the story. Notice that in the story of the Good Samaritan, it's not like, go help the Samaritans, so that eventually they become like you. No. It's watch the Samaritan be the hero of the story and learn from them, which is what happened to me with Mustafa. I learned from him. And that spirit of hospitality made an invitation in our hearts. And so a couple of weeks later, after Hurricane Harvey hit Houston, Hurricane Maria destroyed the island of Puerto Rico. Destroyed the island of Puerto Rico. We started taking teams. It's my homeland. I was living in Raleigh, North Carolina. I was pastoring a church, beautiful church that was growing. Things were going well. And the very night that Hurricane Maria, is destroying the island of Puerto Rico, it was the book release of my second book, Drop the Stones. Wow, what a book. And there was a big photo of me at the Barnes & Nobles in Durham, North Carolina. And people came in, and I got this table, and I got this signature that I practice at home, and I got these 4 Bible verses that are the same that I give to everybody when I'm signing the book, and I'm being really humble. And there was this one chapter that I was reading out loud, and the whole Barnes & Nobles is there listening, and there's this lady crying, and I'm like, it's Jesus. It's all Jesus. That very night, the very night that Hurricane Maria was destroying my island, and I got a phone call 2 days later from a missionary who had given his life in the Middle East, a wonderful man who had been in the Middle East for many years, serving people, loving people. And he called me up and he says, Carlos, he left me a voice message, and it wasn't pleasant. Let me put it that way. He was a good enough friend that he had earned the right to be heard. I think the problem is sometimes we're trying to correct people we haven't earned the right to correct. He had earned the right with me for me to hear his correction. And his message was this: don't you dare waste your life being a talking head, promoting your book and going from church to church, saying how amazing and this chapter and the other. Don't you dare, Carlos, waste your life just talking about the things without actually doing them. And I love to do this in English-speaking churches because I can't do it in Spanish. But the word gospel without the go is a spell. It's a misspelled spell. I go to church, I raise a little bit my hand at that very moment of worship, maybe the one tear on the one week that I need to let it go. And I go say hi to these people at this moment, and I listen to the preacher at this time, and I give this amount of money, and it's just a spell. Without the going, without the movement, without the wind, it's a wasted experience. It might actually be more damaging than helpful. You must go. Carlos, you must go. A couple of days later, I had organized our first trip to Puerto Rico. We landed in Puerto Rico. I was bawling my eyes out during the plane as it's landing. The destruction, the lack of green, the amount of homes. We started to go to specific communities with water filters, water filtration systems, because there wasn't even clean running water in the island of Puerto Rico. We met people that we gave water filters to, we attended them, we helped them. We were going every 2 to 3 weeks, and we would return to these communities, and some of them, because they couldn't receive their dialysis, passed away. We met more people who passed away 3 months after Hurricane Maria than passed away during the hurricane. The lack of response was shameful. It was criminal. It was heartbreaking. There was no electricity in some communities for 18 months. We met so many families who lost loved ones because they couldn't keep their medication in the fridge, that lost loved ones because of different situations. The amount of trauma and mental and just the mental trauma. The community rose up, and it was all over the news. The Puerto Ricans are welcoming each other. But after 8 months of welcoming your neighbor, and they're living with you, and those different dynamics that happen, it was heartbreaking. So my wife and I decided to move back to Puerto Rico. We left everything in North Carolina. We moved with our children to Vega Baja, Puerto Rico, where we are now leading the Happy Givers, an organization that is mostly serving the elderly. Because I don't blame anybody who has left Puerto Rico. It's really hard to live there right now. The systems are crumbling, finances are not enough, food prices are much higher than they are here, while income is much lower than it is here. So we're living in an American territory without American privileges as second-class citizens. That's our reality. And so many people have left the island, but the elderly have stayed. I was born and raised here. I'm not going. And so we mostly attend to an elderly population living by themselves, and the abuelos and abuelas in Puerto Rico are like, don't worry about me. I got some beans back there. I'm good. I got passion fruit and beans. I'm good. But they're not. We have a legitimate crisis of the elderly being abandoned, being heartbroken. It's a lot of work. But it all started on my way to this church. When I'm just following the Spirit. And again, the temptation as a leader in Puerto Rico is, I know what this community needs. What we're going to bring here, let's do 3 days, whiteboarded, and let's plan what's needed for this space. But then when you get to the community, when you learn to listen, because sometimes it's in the pain of others that you hear the wind. Sometimes it's when you get out of your comfort zone and you listen to another story that you hear the wind. Sometimes it's in those spaces when you yourself are broken and when everything's in turmoil and it's in the pain that you hear the wind. And it's inviting you to move. It's inviting you. Here's the thing with the wind. Sometimes you just have to let go and it'll take you. I'll finish with this. My 10 years in Raleigh as a pastor were what we call the South Star. Sometimes we assume this is what I'm meant to do. This is my calling. This is my plan. This is the agenda. This is where I'm headed. And you start walking in that direction. This is my North Star. I'm headed there. And then you realize quickly, wait a minute, I'm terrible at being a pastor. Wait a minute, I'm not as good as I thought I was at planning all these things. Wait a minute, my wife and I are having a terrible marriage in this context. And we realized that where we were headed was our South Star. And sometimes the wind will take you in the opposite direction on purpose. Because sometimes it's only when you face everything that you're not meant to be doing, the way that you're not meant to be going. And so for 10 years in Raleigh, North Carolina, we were faced with all the things we thought we wanted, we thought we were good at, and in that direction we quickly realized we're literally meant to be heading this way. And the wind took us north, which officially was south, because we left North Carolina and headed back to Puerto Rico to serve communities that are broken, marginalized, and oppressed. And there we have rediscovered the truth of the statement that Jesus was so famous for saying that it's not even in the Gospels. It's in the book of Acts. The apostle is saying, you remember how Jesus always said, it is better to give than to receive. And when you allow yourself to go with the wind, where is the brokenness of others? Where is the story of others? Where are those spaces that I'm not usually in? And you go to those places and you learn to listen. And all of a sudden, you break out of the bubble. You break out of your comfort zone. You go across the lines that you've drawn for others. And in that space, you hear the voice of God clearer than you've ever had. And my invitation to you is precisely to make note of all those things that you thought you wanted. And now that you're getting them, you're kind of going, and maybe it's been 10 years of you going, and maybe today is the day where you realize, not there. So I'm going to invite you to stand so I can pray with you for 1 minute as I wrap up. Thank you. And I'm going to invite you to do something that is simple but might be out of your comfort zone. If you dare with me, I'm literally going to ask you to do what the word, both in Hebrew and the Greek, the word repent literally means to change direction. And it could be as simple as doing this. turning around. And if you guys dare with me, right where you stand, get a little bit out of your comfort zone, and everybody just do a 180 in the opposite direction. And I'm going to pray for you. As you face what is possibly the new life that you've been desiring, as you face what is possibly the very moment where you choose not that way, but this way, not that relationship, not that business, not that pressure and that ambition, but this one. Not that spirituality, not that hate, not that unforgiveness, not that bitterness, but freedom. Father, I pray for every single person within the sound of my voice that you, Holy Spirit, would give us courage to change, courage to listen, and courage to let go. I pray that for every family, every man, woman, and child in this room, you would give us courage to turn. Show us the north and lead us, Holy Spirit. We will follow the wind. We're willing to follow the wind. Amen.